Mid-level English Praxis Preparation, Young Adult Books and Authors. Knowledge of Literature. The Praxis exam will expect you to have a general knowledge of young adult literature, including common texts, authors, and the time periods in which those works were written. The texts and authors mentioned in this presentation are representative of the types of works that will be mentioned on the test, but should not be considered comprehensive. It is highly recommended that you use this as a starting point and work from here to expand your knowledge of the young adult literature genre. Divergent Series by Veronica, Roth. The Divergent series is a set of 3 novels: Divergent, released in 2011, Insurgent, released in 2012, and Allegiant, released in 2013. There are also 2 follow-up story collections. 4, a Divergent collection, was released in 2014, and We Can Be Mended, a Divergent series epilogue, was released in 2018. These novels are set in a dystopian future society in which there is an unjust controlling government that has tried to create a utopia, or a perfect society, but has instead implemented totalitarian rule. Generally, dystopian novels will focus on the character's struggle to change, separate from, or overcome the challenges posed by an oppressive society. Divergent background. The setting is in post-apocalyptic Chicago. The main character is Beatrice Triss Pryor. In this society, every person takes a test at 16 years old to determine the faction to which they will belong. The factions are named for personality traits and have corresponding responsibilities. Dauntless is known for bravery, and these people are responsible for security and law enforcement. Amity is known for kindness. These are the farmers, the artists, and the caregivers. Erudite is known for intelligence, and these people are teachers, doctors, scientists, librarians, and academics. Abnegation is known for selflessness. These people work in government and in political leadership. Candor is known for honesty. These people work in law and in the judiciary. And one final group is the factionless. These people are outcast from society who are not a part of any faction. Divergent plot. Beatrice, aka Triss, takes the test to determine her faction, but the results are unclear, meaning that she is divergent or not normal. The test administrator tells her not to tell anyone and to choose her own faction. Beatrice decides to leave Abnegation, her father's faction, to join Dauntless. Dauntless injects various serums during their training, one of which is supposedly a tracking serum. Instead of being a tracking serum, the Dauntless are injected with a mind control serum by Erudite, who plans to overthrow Abnegation. Triss and a few other Dauntless overcome the mind control serum, and the book ends with them seeking to restore order. Insurgent plot. The second novel in the series focuses on the conflicts and alliances among the factions. This novel gives more detail on the factionless class and includes them in the conflict. The major secret revealed at the end of this conflict is that the city was sealed to allow the number of divergents to increase, but that Amity was supposed to unseal the city and allow the citizens to reconnect with the outside world. Allegiant plot. This final novel in the series focuses on an attempt to restore order among the factions and the factionless. It is revealed that the city has been walled off by the U.S. government to create genetically pure divergents by separating them from the genetically damaged population that was harmed by the government attempting to modify people's genetics. After a significant conflict, Chicago is reopened and rebuilt, and people live together in peace, regardless of their genetic purity. Major takeaways. Dystopian novels are usually cautionary tales, and this one is no different. The series serves to warn about the dangers of genetic manipulation, government overreach, and the loss of personal autonomy. Like many dystopian novels, the conflicts are resolved when the heroic main character or characters asserts their individuality in the face of a society or government that attempts to force them into conformity. As is typical for the genre, the exaggerated ideology embraced by the overpowering government or society must be replaced by an egalitarian ideology that places emphasis on individual freedom and personal autonomy. Review question 1. What is a dystopian novel? A novel usually set in the past that illustrates social problems or concerns. B. A novel set in the future that depicts present social problems or concerns. C. A novel set in the present that depicts a character's struggle with social problems or concerns. Or D. A novel set in the future that depicts an ideal society, suggesting solutions to the present social problems that the author believes will create a perfect world. Review question 2. Which of the following best characterizes the major conflict in Roth's Divergent series? A. The main character is battling a social class system where characters are placed in a faction based on the results of an exam. B. The main character is battling a social class system based on geographic regions, where the capital forces children from each region to battle to the death. C. The main character is a demigod on a quest to return stolen items to avoid a war among the gods and to save his mother's life. Or D. The main character is descended from an angelic line of warriors who battle demons and other evil forces that try to take over the earth. The correct answer to this question is A. Which of the following best characterizes the major conflict in Roth's Divergent series? The main character is battling a social class system where characters are placed in a faction based on the results of an exam. You may note that B, C, and D are plot lines from other well-known young adult literature series that we will look at later in our presentation. The Lightning Thief by Riordan. The Lightning Thief is the first in a series of books that center around the character Percy Jackson, a modern-day demigod. Percy Jackson and the Olympian series include the following books: The Lightning Thief, released in 2005, The Sea of Monsters, released in 2006, The Titan's Curse, released in 2007, The Battle of the Labyrinth, released in 2008, and Percy Jackson and the Last Olympian, released in 2009. Riordan has also written several other modern-day mythology series with a similar premise based on the mythology of other cultures. The Lightning Thief. Background. Setting: New York City and Camp Half-Blood. The main character is Percy Jackson. Demigods are offspring of a union between a god and a mortal. Monsters seek to kill demigods, so the gods have established a camp where they can be taken for safety until they are old enough to become heroes and battle the monsters. At the camp, each god has a cabin for campers that are their offspring. The cabins reflect the talents and interests associated with each god. Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades are referred to as the Big Three because they rule the sky, the sea, and the underworld respectively. They have agreed not to have more children, but Poseidon broke the oath by fathering Percy. The Lightning Thief plot. Percy is a troubled youth in New York City who has a record of behavioral problems and a difficult home life. After a series of incidents that indicated Percy's supernatural origin, Percy's mother takes him to Camp Half-Blood. On the trip, they are attacked by a monster, and Percy's mother disappears into a golden light and is presumed deceased. Percy kills the monster. After arriving at the camp and receiving some training, Percy finds that Zeus is angry because he believes Poseidon stole his lightning bolt. Percy is sent on a quest to retrieve it. Chiron, the leader of Camp Half-Blood, believes that Hades is the guilty one and that his motive was to start a war among the gods. Review question 3. What is the main source of conflict in Riordan's book, The Lightning Thief? A. The main character is battling a social class system where characters are placed in a faction based on the results of an exam. B. The main character is battling a social class system based on geographic regions where the capital forces children from each region to battle each other to the death. C. The main character is a demigod on a quest to return stolen items to avoid a war among the gods and save his mother's life. Or D. The main character is descended from an angelic line of warriors who battle demons and other evil forces that try to take over the earth. The correct answer to this question is C. What is the main source of conflict in Rick Riordan's book, The Lightning Thief? The main character is a demigod on a quest to return stolen items, to avoid a war among the gods, and to save his mother's life. The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. The Hunger Games is a series of 4 books consisting of The Hunger Games, released in 2008, Catching Fire, released in 2009, Mockingjay, released in 2010, and The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, released in 2020. The Hunger Games is set in the nation of Panem, located geographically in what was once North America. The nation is comprised of 12 districts that live in poverty to supply the wealth of the capital. As punishment for a past rebellion, each district must send 2 tributes to fight in the Hunger Games each year. The games are a nationally televised reality show in which children fight to the death. The Hunger Games plot. Katniss is a 16-year-old girl from District 12, a mining district in the Appalachian Mountains. Primrose, her younger sister, is chosen as tribute to fight in the games, but Katniss volunteers to take her place. She and Peeta, the son of the local baker, are to be tributes mentored by the alcoholic Haymitch, the only living winner from their district. Peeta confesses his love for Katniss on television, and the two decide to play it up to get more sponsors who will send them supplies during the games. Once in the games, Katniss makes an alliance with Rue, a young girl who reminds her of her sister Primrose. When Rue is killed, Katniss places flowers on her corpse, an act of solidarity with her ally and an act of defiance toward the Capitol. The game makers announce a rule change, saying that two tributes from a district can win together, and Katniss finds Peeta and nurses him back to health. Once all the other tributes are dead, the Capitol announces that the rule change has been revoked and that Peeta and Katniss must battle to the death. Katniss and Peeta agree to defy the Capitol by eating poison berries in a double suicide that will deprive them of a victor, but the Capitol again reverses course and agrees to allow two victors, a move designed to save face since Katniss outwitted them. Catching Fire. Plot. Catching Fire picks up 6 months after The Hunger Games ends and shows a series of rebellions sparked in the district by Katniss outwitting the Capitol. Katniss tells Peeta that she does not have feelings for him and that her actions were for the benefit of the games, but Peeta agrees to keep up the front and to continue to play her fiancé, since love is the only explanation for their suicide pact that will not endanger their lives by making them appear to be a deliberate part of the rebellion. President Snow announces another Hunger Games, this one called a Quarter Quell, in which past victors will be forced to compete. This cancels the wedding and leaves Katniss and Peeta to find allies among the other past victors. While some of the past victors do fight, a group band together and destroy the arena. Katniss finds herself rescued by soldiers from District 13, a district thought to be an uninhabited wasteland that was destroyed during the first rebellion that started the Hunger Games. Mockingjay. Plot. District 12 has been destroyed, and Peeta has been taken prisoner by the Capitol. President Coin of District 13 leads the rebel forces against the Capitol and solicits Katniss to be the Mockingjay, a symbol made famous by the pin that she wore during the games. Katniss and a group of rebels attempt to rescue Peeta, but they find that he has been brainwashed to kill Katniss. The rebels are able to overcome the Capitol, and Coin decides to hold a final Hunger Games in which children from the Capitol will compete. Katniss has been given the privilege to execute President Snow, but she instead fires her arrow at President Coin because she sees that Coin is also evil. Snow dies moments later. Katniss is put on trial but deemed incompetent at the time of the shooting, so she is sent home. The book ends with Peeta and Katniss married with 2 children, living happily in District 12. Review Question 4. What is the purpose of the Hunger Games? A. To reduce population. B. To punish the Capitol for taking money from the districts. C. To force the districts to learn to work together. Or D. To punish the districts for rebelling against the Capitol. The correct answer is D. The purpose of the Hunger Games is to punish the districts for rebelling against the Capitol. Review Question 5. In what literary genre would the Hunger Games series be placed? Hero's journey, dystopian fiction, utopian fiction, or allegory? The correct answer is B. The literary genre for the Hunger Games is dystopian fiction, or a fictional work set in a future society to illustrate a social problem. Match Series by Allyson Condie. The Match series is a set of 3 novels: Matched, released in 2010, Crossed, released in 2011, and Reached, released in 2012. Like most dystopian novels, this series looks at a controlling government that claims to help people by imposing unreasonable regulations on their lives. In this society, people are not allowed to marry for love, but are instead matched based on a compatibility algorithm. Matched. Plot. When Cassia receives her match, there are 2 people instead of 1, but she is told that the second one, Kai, is a glitch. Cassia meets and develops feelings for Kai, which violates the rules of her society, where marriage is based on compatibility rather than emotion. At work, she is told that she is sorting people working at a factory and is told that she is selecting a group to receive a promotion. Believing that she can help Kai, she puts him in the promotion group, but later she finds out that she has placed him in a military unit where he will most likely be killed. The government gives her a pill to cause her to forget what she has done, but she only pretends to take it and hopes to find Kai, setting up the sequel. Crossed. Plot. The narration of the novel relies on a split narrative structure where chapters alternate between the perspectives of Cassia and Kai. Cassia learns about a rebellion against the society called the Rising that is led by someone called the Pilot. Cassia goes on a journey into a desert landscape to find Kai, who reveals that his father was killed for being a member of the Rising. Kai and Cassia discover an archive of tissue samples that all belong to members of the society. They destroy some of the samples and steal others that belong to family members. They find the home base of the Rising, and Kai begins training as a pilot, while Cassia goes back to the society to work for change from within and to help promote the goals of the Rising. What major elements of life are controlled by the society in the Crossed series? Memory is manipulated through the use of drugs. Reproduction and relationships are controlled. Medical care and medications are manipulated for political purposes, or all of the above. The correct answer is D, all of the above. The society manipulates memory through the use of drugs. It does control reproduction and relationships, and it does use medical care and medications for political purposes. City of Ember, Jeanne DuPrau, 2003. In this dystopian novel, the city of Ember is suffering from corruption and a failing generator. It is believed that a prophecy will guide them when help is needed, but the prophecy is destroyed. The 2 main characters, Lynn and Dune, seek to expose the corruption of the city's leadership, but they are forced to flee. They find that the city is buried in a chasm, and that it was founded because the builders believed that life on the surface of the earth would become dangerous, so they moved the population to the underground city. With the city failing, the main characters must reach the inhabitants to let them know that there is a way out. The book ends with one of them dropping a stone into the chasm and it landing in front of one of Lena's neighbors, setting up the sequel. City of Ember, Review Question 7. What are the 2 main problems people are facing in the City of Ember? A. Pollution and gender discrimination. B. A forced class system and arranged marriage. C. Organized crime and failing infrastructure. Or D. Failing infrastructure and lack of resources. The correct answer is D. The 2 main problems people are facing in the City of Ember are failing infrastructure and a lack of resources. The Kite Runner, Khaled Hosseini, 2003. The Kite Runner is set in Afghanistan during the fall of the monarchy and the rise of the Taliban. The title of the story comes from the practice of kite runners battling with kites by attempting to use their kite to cut the other kite's string. The story focuses on Amir, a wealthy boy, and Hassan, the son of his father's servant. When the Soviet Union invades Afghanistan, Amir and his father escape to Pakistan and ultimately to California. His father gets work at a gas station, and they sell items in a flea market to make extra money. Amir's father helps arrange a marriage for him, and then dies. Amir finds that he and his wife are unable to have children. Amir gets a call from his father's best friend, Rahim Khan, who is dying, asking Amir to visit. Amir learns that his childhood friend is also his half-brother, and that the child of this man is in an orphanage. Amir finds that the boy has been taken from the orphanage and is a child prostitute. The man holding him hostage says that he will only release the boy if Amir can beat him in a fight. Amir is badly injured with several broken bones and only survives because the boy shoots the Taliban leader in the eye with a slingshot. Amir plans to take him back to the United States, but then there are issues with the adoption, and it looks as though he may have to return to the orphanage. Fearing this, the boy attempts suicide. Amir is finally able to get approval for the boy to return to the United States with him. When they arrive back in the United States, the boy does not want to interact with Amir until Amir begins to tell him about the past he shared with the boy's father. He explains that they grew up competing as kite runners together in Afghanistan. The Kite Runner, Review Question 8. What is the historical setting of the kite runner? Afghanistan and the United States during the fall of the Afghan monarchy and the rise of the Taliban. Iraq and Saudi Arabia during the Persian Gulf War. Syria during the Syrian Civil War, or Iran during the transition to an Islamic Republic. The correct answer is A. The historical setting of the kite runner is in Afghanistan and the United States during the fall of the monarchy and the rise of the Taliban. Lord of the Flies, William Golding, 1954. Lord of the Flies tells the story of a group of British boys who are stranded on a deserted island due to a plane crash. Ralph is the elected leader who tries to establish a form of democracy, but he is opposed by Jack, who leads a rebel group that becomes violent in opposing Ralph and his orders. Piggy, one of the main characters who follows Ralph, is murdered by Jack and his followers, and Ralph is nearly killed before the boys are rescued by the British Navy. The book explores how human beings act when they are placed in a state of nature and looks at the line between civilization and chaos. It also explores the human desire for power and control. Lord of the Flies, Review Question 9. What is the major theme explored in the book as the boys attempt to establish order on a deserted island? The book explores how money impacts government, especially the corrupting influence of money on people who govern. The book explores how technology impacts the individual and how individuals use technology. The book explores the development of rules and civilization, and it looks at how a civilization devolves into chaos. Or, the book explores the responsibility of individuals to protect endangered species and fragile ecosystems. The correct answer to this question is C. The major theme explored in the book as the boys attempt to establish order on a deserted island is the development of rules and civilization, and the book looks at how a civilization devolves into chaos. The Outsiders, S.E. Hinton, 1967. The book explores the conflict between two rival groups of high schoolers, the Greasers, or working class, and the Socs, or the upper class society. Ponyboy, a Greaser, connects with Cherry, a Soc. Cherry's boyfriend, Bob, attempts to fight Ponyboy and Johnny in a park, attempting to drown Ponyboy in a fountain until Johnny stabs and kills him. Ponyboy and Johnny hide in an abandoned church, and a fellow greaser tells them that the city is about to break out into gang warfare. Johnny decides to turn himself in, but as they prepare to leave, they see that the church is on fire and several local kids are trapped inside. The greasers are regarded as heroes for saving the kids, but Johnny is injured by a falling piece of the roof and his back is broken. The greasers and Socias have a final rumble, which the greasers win. Johnny dies in the hospital, and the other boys are not charged. Ponyboy returns to school, but his grades are bad. His English teacher tells him that he can pass if he writes a good theme, and he decides to write about recent events. The first line of his theme is the first line of the book. The Outsiders, Review Question 10. What is the main difference between greasers and Socias? A. Religious differences. B. Racial differences. C. Geographic differences. Or D. Social and economic differences. The main difference between greasers and Socias are the social and economic differences that divide the groups. The greasers represent the blue-collar working-class families, while the Socias represent the upper-class high society families. Animal Farm, George Orwell, 1945. Animal Farm is an allegory that tells the story of a group of animals on a farm who revolt against the farmer and start their own society. The book is a clear commentary on the Russian Revolution and a criticism of Stalin. The revolution is led by Old Major, a pig, but at his death the pigs Snowball and Napoleon take over. Snowball and Napoleon come into conflict over the building of a windmill, and Napoleon's dogs chase Snowball away, leaving Napoleon as the supreme commander. The book shows how the animals are manipulated through simple slogans and are eventually convinced to give up their freedom and the ideals that prompted their revolution. In the end, the pigs start acting like humans and associating with humans to the point that the animals can no longer tell them apart. Animal Farm Review, Question 11. What historical event is allegorized in Orwell's Animal Farm? The French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, the American Revolution, or the British Revolution? The correct answer to this question is B. The historical event allegorized in Orwell's Animal Farm is the Russian Revolution. The Color Purple, Alice Walker, 1982. The main character, Celie, is an African-American girl living in the rural South. She suffers physical and sexual abuse at the hands of her father. Celie is forced to marry an older man identified as Mr., who needs someone to care for his children and keep his house. He and his children are abusive towards Celie. As time passes, Mr.'s mistress, Shug, falls ill and moves in with the family, becoming friends with Celie. Shug and Celie become intimate, and Celie finally leaves Mr. and moves to Tennessee, where she becomes a seamstress. Celie's father dies, and she inherits her childhood home. Shug falls in love with a member of her band, but continues to write to Celie. In the end, Celie is reunited with her sister, who has been gone for many years, and their families meet for the first time. The Color Purple, Review Question 12. What challenges does Celie have to overcome? A. Physical abuse. B. Sexual abuse. C. Poverty. Or D. All of the above. The Crucible, Arthur Miller, 1953. The Crucible is a play set during the Salem witch trials. but it is an allegory showing the dangers of McCarthyism in the United States during the 1950s. Betty Paris, the daughter of Reverend Samuel Paris, lies unconscious, and Abigail Williams, his niece, and a group of her friends accuse Tituba, a slave from Barbados, of practicing witchcraft and involving them in rituals in the woods. Abigail then begins to accuse the wife of her former employer of witchcraft, an employer with whom Abigail was having an affair. As the trial wears on, many of the townspeople are accused of witchcraft by people with ulterior motives. Ultimately, the only way to be proven innocent is to confess that you are a witch and to accuse others as part of your confession, a clear parallel to what was happening in the United States in the Committee on Un-American Activities. Ultimately, many innocent people are executed because they refuse to give a false confession. The Crucible, Review Question 13. What historical events inspired Miller to write The Crucible? The American Civil War, McCarthyism and the Committee on Un-American Activities, the American Revolution, or the congressional hearings on Nixon and Watergate? The correct answer is B. The historical events that inspired Miller to write The Crucible were McCarthyism and the Committee on Un-American Activities. Although the play is set during the Salem witch trials, the events that inspired it took place in mid-20th century America. Note: additional texts. The texts presented here are representative of the types of texts that are referenced on the release tests. However, it is not possible to create a comprehensive list. It is highly recommended that you review a variety of adolescent literary texts and make yourself familiar with important details of each one. A table like the one below can provide you with a useful study guide. You should note the title, author, and date of publication, the plot, setting, and main characters, and the historical and political context in which the work was written. Major literary genres. Genre is a word taken from French that means kind or type. Genre categorizes works based on their characteristics. Fiction is a genre made up of narratives or stories. These stories may be short or they may be novel length. The focus is generally on plot, character, setting, and theme. Nonfiction are factual works based on real life. These may be researched or they may be based on a recounting of personal experiences. Poetry is a genre that is written in stanzas. It may follow a predictable structure or it may be more free form. Poetry relies heavily on figurative language. And drama, our last genre, includes plays written with dialogue and stage directions. While plays are often read, they are written to be performed. Subgenres. A subgenre takes one of the four major genres and breaks it into more specific categories. It is important to be able to identify both the genre and the subgenre of a literary work. Subgenres are the categories that we usually find most familiar because they are used in casual conversation and commercial labeling of books, videos, and other media. It's important to remember that subgenres are descriptive and overlap, meaning that a work may possess characteristics that could place it in more than one subgenre. Poetry subgenres. Blank verse. Blank verse is poetry written in a predictable meter that does not rhyme. Rhymed poetry. Poetry that demonstrates a predictable rhyme scheme. Free verse. Poetry with no consistent rhyme scheme, meter, or specific form. Epics. Narrative poems that generally tell about adventures of the past. Narrative poetry. Any poem that tells a story. Haiku. A poem in the traditional Japanese form that has 3 lines, the first line having 5 syllables, the second having 7 syllables, and the third having 5 syllables. Poetry subgenres. Pastoral poetry. Pastoral poems focus on nature and rural life. Sonnets. A sonnet is a 14-line poem. The rhyme scheme may vary depending on the type of sonnet, but the theme is usually concerned with love. An elegy is a poem focused on death, loss, or redemption. An ode is a poem written as a tribute to a subject. An ode may be written to a person or to an object. A limerick is a 5-line poem with 1 stanza and an AA-BBA rhyme scheme. Limericks are often humorous. A lyric poem is one dealing with feelings and emotions. And a ballad is a musical poem that generally has rhymed quatrains. Note, like fiction, categories of poems may overlap, and poems may fall into more than one category. Fiction subgenres. Fictional subgenres include crime and mystery, fantasy, romance, science fiction, horror, historical fiction, and many others. The important thing to remember when looking at fictional subgenres is that you are looking at a group of stories or literary works that have similar characteristics. Nonfiction subgenres. Nonfiction subgenres include academic texts, biographies, or text written about a person's life by someone else, autobiographies, text written about a person's life by the individual, creative nonfiction, nonfiction presented in the form of a story, essays, which are short pieces written about a topic or a point of view, journalistic writing, writing about news or current event, reference works such as encyclopedias, dictionaries, atlases, travel logs, and self-help books. Again, it is important to remember that these are only examples and that there are many other nonfiction subgenres. Genre Review Question 14. What is genre? A. Genre is a group of works written in a particular time period. B. Genre is the category into which a piece of writing falls based on its characteristics. C. Genre is the body of work written by a particular author. Or D. Genre is the body of work published by a publishing company. The correct answer to this question is B. Genre is the category into which a piece of writing falls based on its characteristics. Subgenre. Review question 15. What is a subgenre? A subgenre is similar to a genre, but it provides a more general categorization of the work. B. A subgenre is the opposite of a genre because it does not categorize a literary work. C. A subgenre takes one of the 4 major genres and breaks it into more specific categories. Or D. A subgenre and a genre are different words for the same thing. The correct answer to this question is C. A subgenre takes one of the 4 major genres and breaks it into more specific categories.